Hey, y'all. Welcome to the Reckless Optimist podcast. My name is Megan. I'm a family nurse practitioner with a deep passion for mental health. On this show, we showcase guests who have shown tenacity, grit, mental strength, and who embody the word resilience. A quick disclaimer before we start. This show is not a substitute for mental diagnosis or treatment. We do recommend that if you're struggling with your own emotional well-being, you see a mental health provider. I'm so excited that you guys are here. Let's get into it. Hey, everyone. Today on the podcast, we have Chris. Chris has an insanely powerful story. I apologize to the YouTube viewers if you're watching because I was sobbing the whole time and snot was running down my face. He has a story of trauma. Trigger warning, we do talk about sexual assault. He, developed a really unhealthy relationship with drugs and alcohol due to the trauma he had gone through, in and out of treatment centers, legal trouble, bouncing from state to state. Just a wild story, but ultimately he found long-lasting sobriety. He just celebrated 8 years and he is thriving, working for a recovery center. He's a recovery coach and he's doing some amazing, amazing things. I know you guys are going to love this story. Let's get into it. Hey, everyone. Help me welcome Chris to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Megan.
Yes, I'm so excited you're here. So before we jumped on, we were talking about how me and you are from the same small town in Georgia.
Yep, that's right. Good old Raven County.
Good old Raven County, God's country, right?
That's right.
It's beautiful up there. It's a microcosm. It's a little world, and it's a very, very interesting place. A lot of it is owned by the National Forest Service, so they can't develop it. So it stays the same in some ways, which is rare.
Like how you said, it's its own little world. Plays by its own set of rules, too.
That is so true. So true. Yeah. The movie Varsity Blues, it always makes me think of Raven County. Do you know that movie?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So we actually didn't go to school at the same time. I'm a little bit older than you, but we ran in the same circles.
Yeah, we sure did.
Yeah.
Partied at some of the same places.
Yeah, right. We were just talking about the lake house, the infamous
Not
lake
out.
house.
They'll know who we're talking about.
Well, before we get into your story, we're going to start our episode out with a quote like we do each time. And the quote for your episode is one of my favorite quotes, and it's anonymous. I don't know who said it. I tried to find out, and I can't figure it out. So the quote goes, "We fall, we break, we fail, but then we rise, we heal, we overcome." What does that quote mean to you?
Trials and tribulations, right? In order to grow, you have to get uncomfortable. In order to grow, you're going to fail. But that's how we grow as people. That's how you grow as a person, too.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, it makes me think of the whole idea, like in science, you learn that a seed has to completely destroy itself before it becomes a flower. And yeah, that process is painful. The growth of it all is painful. Growth and like comfort can't ride the same horse, right? So yeah, it's a painful process, but that's ultimately how we grow. I think of it just like spiraling up, powering up in a video game. Every time you're going through something, you're just becoming better as long as you don't stay in your victimhood. If you stay in your victimhood, you're going to stay down.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, I'm very excited to hear your story. So wherever you feel comfortable, just take us back.
Yeah, I'll start. So I was born in Columbus, Georgia. And like I told you, I'm just going to be real on this podcast. A lot of this I haven't really shared with anyone in our hometown. I moved out here to Austin, Texas 8 years ago, and I've been here ever since. But when I was a child, I was a victim of sexual abuse, and it happened for years. I think back then not enough studies were done, and like I told people, and it was kind of brushed underneath the rug. And it was a lot more than just sexual abuse. There was like some physical, like and emotional torture along with that. But I learned at a young age, like you couldn't trust, my belief systems where you couldn't trust people. And unfortunately, I built this belief system that I couldn't trust my parents, right? And the more I get into my story, the more and I'm a dad now, so I realize now that like no parent's perfect, but growing up, you couldn't tell me that. So because of that, I started having behavioral issues. And so they thought, of course, a geographical change would fix that. And they moved me and my sister up to Raven County. About that time, they got me in front of a bunch of doctors and they just heavily medicated me to kind of make me docile and play by the rules. And I hated it. I hated the medication. I think only a few people in our hometown knew about that, the ones I was closest to. I kind of hid that close to my chest. I mean, how do you at a young age know how to talk about that stuff, right? And on paper, man, it looked like I had the life, right? We had a nice house in Blue Ridge Gap on Persimmon, like beautiful, beautiful property. And I had four-wheelers and dirt bikes. But behind the scenes, it wasn't a good childhood. I didn't have a good relationship with my family. So anyways, heavily medicated. And probably around the time I was 11 or 12, people were like, all right, let's try to do something for Chris here. Like, obviously, we're going to try to get justice for him. And I went to court and all that stuff got dug back up. And I had to look that man in the eye. And basically, I got told by a judge that I could have been sleeping. It could have been a dream. And I just kind of shut down at that point. And I was just like, I don't care anymore. Like, I'm over it. I'm over talking about this. I wrote my parents basically off, right? And then shortly after, um, we were down in the field one day. My parents had some alcohol, and they called me over, and they proceeded to tell me I was that my dad who raised me wasn't my real dad. So it like just that kind of information that wasn't handled in the best case, right? That wasn't the type of situation or the scenario they should have told me that stuff. And so it just added fuel to the fire, right? Because now I had this narrative that this man that I adored, and I mean, from a young age, my father always was very apologetic, and he made it known that, like I wanted to do something. I wanted to do something bad to that man, but if that was the case, you wouldn't have had me in your life. But he talked to me about it, right? He didn't just try to pretend that it didn't happen. But when I found out he wasn't my real dad, I don't know why, but I spun this narrative that he didn't love me. And I think shortly after that, I smoked weed for the first time with some mutual people we both know. They lived in that area. We were out hunting one night and I got high, and I didn't really, it was marijuana. Marijuana ain't never been my thing. I don't like to spaz out and get all paranoid, but it made those thoughts go away, right? So I would do it on and off whenever I could. I mean, honestly, my parents just basically let me do whatever I wanted to for the most part. And I remember I was about 12 or 13 when I went up to, I think it's called Billy's Branch, and I got drunk for the first time. I had that talk, what Bills describes as like that point of I have arrived, right? For once, I wasn't feeling insecure. For once, I didn't feel like people could see this mark on me. I didn't feel unclean because of what happened to me when I was little. I just didn't care, and I could actually talk and communicate. And I really didn't feel sedated anymore from the medication I was on. I mean, alcohol hyped me up, and I ended up drinking so much I got alcohol poisoning. My dad had to come pick me up the next day. I mean, if you ever had alcohol poisoning, especially at a young age, you're basically bedridden for a couple of days. And he thought that was going to be punishment enough. I knew every chance, I had to be like 13, every chance I got from then on, every weekend, I was trying to sneak beer. My parents always had alcohol in the house, so I could get away with it. And I did that for as long as I could. Behavioral, I got expelled from public school in the 4th grade, and I got put in a Christian school in North Carolina. So I kind of disappeared from all the guys I grew up with for a couple of years, and it was a bad experience at this school. So yeah, I mean, it just changed me. I just flew under the radar at that point. But again, when I found alcohol, it talks about in the big book, men and women drink essentially for the effects produced. And that's how I describe it when people ask me, like, why'd you do the things you did? It's like, because the effect drugs and alcohol gave me were so profound, it was worth any trouble that came my way. And that's why I chased it for years, even after drugs and alcohol didn't work, was just for the slim chance that maybe I could get that freedom again. And so I chased that with alcohol, and alcohol, any trouble with the law I've ever been in is because of alcohol. And I'm a heroin addict. I don't even like alcohol. I quit liking alcohol when I was about 18, 19 years old and went to opiates. But all my trouble started with booze. And when I was about 16, I got really intoxicated one night and took some Xanax in Clayton. And I ran my truck into Bruce Russell's attorney office in downtown Clayton, all the way through that brick office. And I took off and I evaded police for about 8 hours. And I got charged with a bunch of stuff at 16. They were wanting to put me in YDC until I was 18. But my parents, I think, parented a lot out of guilt. And I was entitled. I was a little brat, too. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I didn't, I wanted to keep my parents at a distance, but I wanted the money and I wanted what could come with that. And my dad would just write checks, whatever he could to take care of me, right? But that followed me around for a long time. And I knew I had a problem when it was the weekend after I had just totaled my truck, got hit with all this legal stuff. I was on the front page of the news. newspaper, the Clayton Tribune, at 16 years old. Like, I walked into Rabun County High School and people were just looking at me, and teachers were, by then I'd built a bad name. I was like the troubled one, right? Like, people are already saying he's doing drugs, and I wasn't at the time. I just drank and partied my ass off. But I'd already started to get that reputation, and it wasn't a week after, like, I had been out drinking and we went to Waffle House downtown, and I left a damn beer can on someone's tool gate, and they pulled us over, and the sheriff at the time knew me, and he was just like, dude, bro, it's done now, man. Like, I can't do anything for you. And he was arresting two of my other buddies because they were 18, and he just wasn't going to give them a break. But he called my dad, and he said, Bo, I'm going to let you come pick him up, but this is it. So my dad came down there and he picked me up, and we pretended like everything was fine. And, I mean, it put a big financial strain on my parents, like paying all the attorney fees, and it caused my mom to have a nervous breakdown, and she lost her job, and just shit wasn't good. And I think I realized, like, I couldn't even go a week without putting alcohol in my body, man. Restless, irritable, and discontent. That's what they call it. That was me just patting my feet the whole time. And I never will forget this night. Man, I thought I liked alcohol and I thought I had a ride, but I never forget being at Lake Burton Bar. Somebody called me down there and they're like, man, you got to come hang out with all of us. And the thing with me is, like, without alcohol, I wasn't social. I know maybe people might have thought I was confident and conceited, but that was all bullshit. I was a complete opposite. I didn't know self-worth throughout my childhood, dealt with suicidal ideation. They constantly would find knives in my rooms. Like, I wasn't doing good, but I would present like I was because I wanted to fit in. So I was like, what am I going to do? I'm going to go down and sit at the bar and be sober. And I did it, and it sucked. And then somebody came up behind me and they were like, hey man, I got something that'll fix that. And, happened to be my first Oxycontin, the real thing. I mean, I remember I watched what it did to a lot of my friends, but I was just like, I don't think that'll happen to me. Like, I'm not gonna turn into that. And it was instant. Like, I knew as soon as I did it that I was gonna do that shit forever. I loved it, and I did. Anytime I could get it, I would. I think the one good thing I always had going for me was, like, I made good grades. I didn't even have to try to study. But again, that went against that stage character, because I was like the guy that had my ears pierced, like the nicest white shoes on, baggy pants, like thought I was a little gangster. Really, I was none of that. I was kind of a nerd behind closed doors. I love to learn. And I would purposely fail tests in high school. I remember getting A's in biology, and people were like, what? And I was like, all right. And I made a C on one. I was like, no, I'm struggling too. And yeah, I mean, high school was just a shit show, basically. I just partied the whole time, and got pretty hooked on pills. And then I went to community college, North Georgia Technical School. I was doing real well, but I couldn't get myself off this stuff. And I remember all my buddies, like my best friend at the time, like my brother, and I was like, man, I'm not feeling good. And he laughed and he was like, dude, you're dope sick. And I was like, oh, shit. I started to connect the dots. And I said, well, maybe if I go down to South Georgia and go to a university, and just get away from everybody and everything, like, I'll be good. And as the saying goes, like, you're going to take you wherever you go, right? I kept it together for maybe a semester down there before I found who had this stuff. Yeah, I did the same stuff down there, except I was no longer like the social person. Alcohol and drugs seduced me. They took everything away that had ever hindered me. They took away the thoughts I had about when I was a child and what happened to me, and they made me confident and all that. But by the time I was 20, 21 years old, they stripped me of all that and taking me even further down. And I made some really poor choices down in South Georgia. I did some things I really regret. And I ended up robbing a drug dealer down in South Georgia, and I wasn't equipped to deal with the consequences of that. And so I called daddy real quick and I said, hey man, as you know, I got a problem. I'm ready to go to rehab. But I didn't know what I was signing up for. And my sister at that point had already gone to rehab, and she was about it. She'd had enough. And if people are listening to this and you don't think you can get sober after just going to one rehab, you can, because she did it. She'd had enough, and she was ready to put in the work. And she made it seem easy, and I was like, okay, yeah, I'll go. I didn't want to put in the work. I didn't want to change. I damn sure didn't want to talk about what happened to me when I was a kid. And you land in one of those places and I'll get into it. I'll be the first one to tell you, until you got a little bit of time on your belt, Sitting there trying to talk to a therapist about how you feel and what you went through, it's a waste of fucking time, in my opinion. I've been to enough treatment centers where I have tried that game and it never works. But I went to a wilderness rehab and I spent 80 something days out there and I showed up poorly. And my parents spent an absolute fortune because they were promised X, Y, and Z and none of it happened. I just camped out in the woods. You're not going to get well doing that. How anyone believe it's baffling to me, but they're out there. And I'll tell you one thing I did learn out there was real quick, which was, all right, they're sending everyone to sober living. I'm a pretty smart guy. I know how to play. I can play the game. Oh yeah. I'll go to sober living. I'll do all that stuff. And the whole time, the only thing that brought me peace was knowing I'm gonna get a job. I'm gonna save up money. I'm gonna move out, and I'm going straight to the methadone clinic because I can't kick this stuff. I don't want to overdose and die, but like I wasn't ready yet. And oh man, I had no idea what I was signing up for. I didn't even make it 6 months into sober living. I work in this industry and like get told guys all the time, I ain't got a problem. And I'm like, bro, you can't even say sober in a fucking sober living house. What do you mean you don't have a problem? But that was me. I would tell you all day I don't have a problem. And I relapsed in there and I was actually helping out. I was the one that did the UAs. So I just didn't UA myself, and eventually they caught on to that. And I didn't try to lie. I just told the owner what it was. And yeah, I went straight to the methadone clinic and I started that journey. And if you know anything about that, that was awful because once you get on it, they don't plan on taking you off. And I got put on, 106 milligrams a day. I was just a methadone zombie and I wasn't sober at all. I quit pills and occasionally up in Asheville. That's where I was at the time in Asheville, North Carolina. If I could, find dope, I would do it. And I'd already started being an intravenous user when I could. But yeah, like I still did Xanax. I still drank on methadone. All my overdoses have been on methadone. And things got really bad on that stuff. I was working at a landscape company, kind of helping manage it a little bit. And I'll say the guy that ran this thing was great to me. He knew I was in recovery. He treated me like gold, and I did not return that favor. And he called me on a Saturday, and I was so loaded. And he said, man, like, we just got this call. I really need you to go cut this property. Can you do it for me? And I did. And I nodded out on this pistol grip mower. So you're using your hands to control it. And the security thing had gotten unplugged and it turned around and ran me over and sucked my foot up in the mower. And it cut my foot all to shit and broke it in so many places. And I had to walk about a mile back to the truck because I didn't have a cell phone on me. And I'm in a really nice neighborhood. And I look so bad out there and just a blood trail behind me. And I'm just screaming, help me. And these people are like closing the door on me. But I made it back. And he even called me. He was like, dude, you got to pass a drug test or you're screwed. And like, whatever's out there always looked out for me. I was totally taken care of, all the surgeries. I tried to get off of methadone for a long time and I couldn't. Every time I would get down to a certain dose, like the withdrawals would get too bad and all those thoughts and all the childhood stuff would come back up for me. So I'd get right back on it. And then my uncle moved to Brevard, North Carolina, and he was a preacher. And he said, dude, why don't you come out here and come be with us, man. Let us help you. And at that point I said, well, let me get off methadone and I'll get on Subutex. And I did that for another 3 years. And it's just, it was just a ball and chain, I couldn't pass a drug test because I was always on Xanax or something. So I never got take homes, so it was just every day I had to be there by a certain time. Met a girl up there. As a lot of you know, in recovery, we get a new girl or a new car or whatever. It's great for a while, but the shine wears off, right? And everyone up there that knew me didn't really know me. It was just this mask I wore all the time, which is unfortunate because I lived in that small town for years and like they loved me. And I couldn't tell you really anything about those people. And she ended up wising up and she realized that I was back on some stuff and she ended things, which good. She needed to. She didn't have no business in that. And for the next year, I went down a really dark road, darker than anything I had gotten. I got tied up with some bad guys up there and yeah, I kind of just given up on life. My parents did an intervention on me in 2017. They tried to get all the guns out of my house because I was very much considering it. And I begged them, like, how awful would it be now that I'm a parent to have this happen? But I begged my parents, like, I only got a month left, if that. Just let me go. Like, I'm just tired, dude. Like, my soul is tired, man. I'm sure I'm not the only one who's had that feeling. It's just done. But they had this intervention guy, and I hated him at the time. I love him now, man. He saved my life. But I hadn't eaten in a long time. I was down to like 130 pounds, and I was blackout on Xanax, and I guess I'd fought my parents for like 4 days on an intervention, and literally all this guy had to do was show up and be like, "Hey, buddy, are you hungry?" And I was like, "Yeah." And I guess he said something about hot dogs, and I got in the car with him. And next thing I know, a couple of days later, I woke up in a detox psychiatric unit. And I remember it was like 4 or 5 in the morning. I realized real quick I was not in my bed at my home. And I peeked out the door and I saw the long plexiglass window, and I went on attack immediately. And I had security called on me at that place. And I mean, as they say, like, God has his plan, man. Like, everything is by his design. And I'd been on maintenance for a long time. It was a big treatment center, right outside of Asheville. But I didn't get a taper really. They gave me like a 4-day taper. If you know, like, if you've been on this stuff a long time, methadone or some Subutex, it's usually like a month-long taper. I got 4 days, and I remember going up. It was August 5th, 2017. Went up to the nurse's window, and they told me it was all done. And I flipped out. And man, that the next 3 weeks were absolute hell. But I'm so grateful for those. Like, I suffered and I needed that. I've always been bailed out. I'll just say it. Chronic relapsers, but we keep going back to treatment because we're given that luxury, right? You give me an easier, softer way and just send me to treatment every time. I'm not really going to change. My parents weren't coming to come get me. I AMA'd, they gave me all my shit and said, take off. I went right to the gas station, got a pack of cigarettes because you couldn't have any nicotine in this place. And I had like $175 on me. I'm basically in my hometown up right outside of Asheville. Like, I'd lived there for like 6 years. One of my guys was literally 20 minutes down the road. Like, I don't need my cell phone. Like, I know his number by heart. I don't know. I just was tired, man. I just didn't want to do this anymore. And so I ended up going back, and I'm still really sick. And there was one night, I'll never forget it. This is where things started to change for me. I'm grateful for it. I wanted to kill myself that night, and I had every intentions of doing it. Like, yeah, I could taste it. I just wanted to be free from what I was feeling. I didn't want to think about stuff that had happened to me. I didn't want to talk about it. And of course, I was in this facility where they're just trying to talk to me about it every day. But they put me in a room where all the corners at the tables were like shaved off. The shower curtains would break away. The doorknobs were close enough to the floor to where you couldn't tie a sheet really. They were checking on me all the time. And I just remember, like, running my elbow as hard as I could into the wall, just cussing out God and crying. That's the first time I'd cried, like, just wept like a child in a long time. I just was like, dude, if you will help me, like, I swear I'll do it, man. And I had what some people describe. It was like a warm embrace, man. Like, I've never felt warmth inside of my body like that. And if you ask anyone that knows me, before that, like, I was not a Christian. I mean, sure, did I believe in God? Yeah, but like, I felt like God had given up. He wasn't there for me as a kid. I damn sure didn't give a shit about him. But that night changed, man. Like, he was there for me at my worst. And I wish I could say that I woke up that next day and my behaviors changed. They didn't. I was a menace in this treatment center. But enough, like, the door had been cracked. Something was a little bit different. I started finding some stuff objectionable, and I felt like I kind of made a deal last night, and I kept breaking the rules and getting wrote up, and they were like, man, this ain't the place for you. And I was like, I've been trying to tell you people that for a long time. I've been to treatment centers where everyone reads off a pamphlet, you learn about the brain. Like, that's not going to help me. All I can think about 5 weeks into this place, going through the worst withdrawals, is the day I get out, like, I'm going to get so fucked up. And he was like, well, it's between Atlanta, Georgia, and this place out in Texas. And I was like, well, I'm going to go pray real quick. Dude, I don't pray. Like, the only time I ever prayed was like if a cop car was behind me, like little foxhole prayers. But I went in there and yeah, man, it was weird. I remember afterwards being like, I can't believe I just did that. And Austin, Texas called to me, and I got on this phone, like, I harassed my therapist. I said, I want to call now. Like, I want to get out of here. I'm ready to get going. And I called this place, and yeah, he was like, dude, we're 12 steps out here. And I was like, sign me up, dude. As long as you're telling me I'm not going to have to sit through a group learning about how the brain works, like, I'm about it. I had no idea what I was signing up for. I came to a treatment center that was not the treatment center. It wasn't the place that you wanted to go. Like, it was for young men, but it had just opened, and they had adopted a curriculum from one of their other properties that was meant for chronic relapsers, and they were about it. They didn't hold back. They didn't walk around eggshells on me. I never forget the first day going in there. until the guy sat me down and he said, "Look, man, I'm gonna be honest with you. I ain't gonna talk to you about the shit that happened to you when you were a child because A, I'm not a master's levels clinician. I'm an LCDC and I'm not qualified to do that. But what I am gonna do is I'm gonna hold you accountable and I'm gonna take you through the steps. And you got one job here to do." And I said, "What's that?" And he was like, "To follow direction." I was like, "Damn, okay." And I tested things out there. I'm not used to following the rules. No one is. And this place had the dumbest rules, and it was set up like that for the reason. Like you couldn't drink milk past 10 o'clock. You couldn't step on the grass. You couldn't do just shit that made no sense. But it's like rules in here equate to laws on the outside. Dude, just for 90 days, can you just follow the damn rules? And I couldn't do that to save my life. And I remember my counselor, man, really started pushing me on some stuff. We all have, like, I have certain areas I don't want people to touch. Like, they're off limits to me. And one was my sister. Like, don't bring her up. I'm going to get really pissed off about it. And he didn't hold back. He was like, dude, you have been a shitty brother. And that's how he talked to me. And thank God, like, I don't need someone that's gonna pat me on the ass and tell me things are gonna be okay. Like things ain't never been okay with me. Like I'm at that point I'm putting a needle in my arm, right? I'm fucking waking up in a hospital in Asheville, North Carolina, and don't even know how I got there hooked to machines. Like things aren't good. And I appreciated that. And it kind of fired me up, honestly. I was like, okay, this guy's like talking some real shit. And he broke down how I wasn't a good brother, right? And he was like, words are one thing, Chris, actions are another. What do your actions say? And I remember saying, fuck you to him. And he said, cool, fuck you too. And I remember walking out of his office being like, what just happened? I never had a counselor talk to me, like challenge me like that, or even talk to me like that. But all I did that next night was just run that session through my head and through my head. I didn't really do what they wanted me to do. I kind of was the guy behind the scenes. I was one of the oldest in the community, and I like to be entertained in rehab. So I would like to stir the pot so I could sit back and watch everyone flip out on each other. And we had what's called high accountability groups and still on stills and all that. And it's basically like in a setting where people don't hold punches. And you can't retaliate. You can't do any of that. And I remember my sister was getting married and they pulled me in the office and they were like, dude, we've been debating about this for a long time, but we feel like you've missed out on enough of your sister's life. And honestly, you're not doing a whole lot of shit here. So you can go. And if you want to come back and actually do some stuff, cool. If not, don't. And my parents hired this sober companion guy. He's been my sponsor now for 8 years. It's funny because like he's like the big book guru. And at that time I didn't want to hear. I thought the 12 steps in the big book was just so stupid. Just a bunch of foo-foo stuff, you know? But man, the way he was teaching it to me on the flight and in this hotel room, like I could really relate to it. And I think a changing moment was at my sister's wedding. One of my relatives came up and they were like, Chris, you look so good. We haven't seen you sober since you were 15. I was 26 and they're telling me they haven't seen me sober since I was 15. Like that doesn't feel good anymore, right? When you're younger, that's all cool and stuff. But at 26 years old, it's not. I didn't have anything. I had a college degree and yet I'm working at Ace Hardware at 26 and my family's paying my bills on the deal that like just don't put a needle in your arm. Just don't eat Dilaudid. Like, we'll cover the rest. Like that wasn't supposed to be me. And it stung when they told me that. And I was like, I'm ready to go back to Texas. Like, let's get cracking. And I went back and I hit the steps as hard as I could. And I didn't hold back. Any other previous treatment centers, when I would get on the 4-step, taking a personal inventory, reviewing your life, resentment inventory means hurt, threatened, interfered with. And we're not just talking about anger. People were actually explaining this stuff to me and it was making a lot of sense. And I did that. I put the man who did those things to me were little. I was told, Chris, if you practice the 3 indispensables, open-mindedness, willingness, and honesty, you will have an experience whether you want to or not. And when they said, all right, flip that page over and do a 4th column on that guy that did that stuff to you, what was your part? They made it clear, Chris, you didn't have a part. You were a kid. What we're talking about is what part did you have as you got older? What was your ACE card? What would you tell you when your parents would say you're going to be homeless? I would always throw the worst thing up in their face and say, you let this guy do this to me. That was the part I played in it. And I was at a point I was willing to go there. And I had an experience, man. And I read this book called The Shack. It's a book about a man who, this little girl gets kidnapped, raped, and murdered. She's like 5 years old. It's horrible stuff. And he hates God. And he ends up meeting God. And in this interaction with God, he learns that God's not wrathful. He's not any of that shit. And I so bad wanted to believe that. I wanted to believe in something like that. Just like a nice guy that would hug me and love me and care about me and did have a plan for me. And in that book, it talks a lot about forgiveness. And in there, God tells that guy, like, I want you every day when you wake up to say you forgive that guy that did that to your little girl. And I know you're not going to mean it, but just say it. And I started doing that about the man that did that to me, and it got easier and easier, and, I got out and went into sober living, and, I was all about this title. I had to have a certain title to feel good about myself and make a certain amount of money to feel good about myself now that I was sober, and so I went into sober living. I didn't take direction. I got a stressful job, and, I mean, man, God showed up for me day one. Like, I went and interviewed with this big guy, big intimidating guy, and I remember they did a big book group and at my treatment center, and the guy out there was like, dude, just be honest. Like, don't you get tired of just like having to steer through all these lies? Like, you go to a job interview and like, just, I'm not saying you gotta, advertise it, but like you ain't got to start throwing out a bunch of lies. And in this interview, and I remember telling that guy, I was like, that's stupid. And then I told the rest of my community, I was like, don't follow his advice. Lo and behold, I'm in this interview and this big old guy, he said, hey man, you got a good resume. We'd like to hire you, but what are you doing out here? You've jumped around a lot. And I don't know why, but in that moment, I was just like, dude, I'm a chronic relapse. I've been bouncing in and out. And he slid me the company card and was like, I love that, man. Like, I appreciate your honesty. I'm in recovery. I don't know, man. Once again, like my perspective started to change, and I worked for that company. But every day for prayer and meditation, I would ask God to let me be of maximum service to Him and my fellows. But I would always feel a little bit empty, like I wasn't doing something I was supposed to do. And people had always made comments like, I got court ordered to AA when I was 16. Like I grew up in AA. I grew up in this. My real father, who I met later on in life, he's a drug addict. Like I grew up in this shit. And it only made sense to go and work with people like me. And so I quit that job where I was making really good money. And I went and took a $12 an hour job as a tech working swing shift at a treatment center. And that was the best decision I ever made. I knew immediately that was home for me. And I didn't work there long before I got a promotion. And I got asked by then I was like a year and a half sober, and like I was about it, man. Like, I'm not going to sit here and go and talk to men and sponsor men if I'm not doing this shit. As a wise guy once told me, like, you can't get recovered through osmosis. Coming out here to Texas, and that's what I started hearing. And I was like, yes, that's my stuff. I don't have the luxury to sit around and wait for the miracle to happen. I can't wait that long, right? And I got told that out here, like, get busy, do the work. The work is do the damn steps. Get a sponsor. Day one, get after it. You want a different life? Do something about it. I mean, I just sat there and talked about my trauma. Like, I've been through it. Okay, what? You still got to do something, right? I learned, like, I'd been a victim my whole life. I no longer want to be his victim. But there I was for 26 years doing that. I let him have that power of me. I'm not doing that anymore. I'm going to do something about it. And so I became a recovery coach and I got certified, and I ate that shit up. Like, I love meeting with guys. And you ask anyone that knows me out here in Austin, like, I'll do anything really anybody. But drug addicts have a special place in my heart. And man, I have been in some of the sketchiest crisis intervention trainings, and people always use me as an example when they're teaching this because they're like, Chris, talk about some of the crises you've had to deal with. I've had knives pulled on me. I've had guns pulled on me. Not once did I ever feel unsafe, right? Like, I probably shouldn't have put myself in those situations, but I'm glad I was there. And in my 7 years of working in this industry, it's been great, but I've also, like, had to be a part of some really shitty stuff. Like, I've watched people take their last breath in the hospital, and people are like, "Doesn't that mess you up?" And it's like, "No, man. Like, I get to be there for somebody because someone's parents can't come out here in time, so they don't have to die alone." Like, I'm good with that. Like, I'll take that. As you can see behind me, these are all my wedding pictures. Like, I mean, I never thought I was gonna get married. Like, I never thought I could even be intimate really with a person. I mean, I don't mind being vulnerable. Like, I never had sex sober. I couldn't. I didn't like to be touched. Through recovery and everything, and I found a woman that understood, and I just was honest with her. She loved me, and she didn't care. I'm about to have my second baby boy. I get asked all the time, 8 years into this, "What do you do?" And it's still the same answer, right? Why would I stop doing the things that got me well? I don't know about you, but, like, I still can remember the taste of wanting to take my own life. Yeah, I might not remember quite what it's like to be dope sick, but it's still there, right? And sure, over time, desperation ebbs and flows, but it's through working with others, and my work is not my recovery. I go just as hard in my recovery when I'm off of work as I do when I'm on work. Like I said in the beginning, men and women drink essentially for the effects produced. Recovery is the same thing. I'll be honest with you, Megan. If I didn't get something out of recovery, I wouldn't do this shit. It tells us selfish and self-centeredness. That is the root of our problems. That doesn't go away. And what I didn't understand for many years is I love the big book now, I'll tell you that. The way it's written, man, and Bill and the guys that wrote it were super smart. There's so many nuances in there where it talks about, man, alcohol ain't the problem, dude. Like, I'm the problem. And I always have been. Alcohol was the solution. It just quit working. Right? And I learned to get vulnerable with men about what happened to me when I was a child. I learned that I needed to look men in the eyes and that not all men thought of me as weak. But I didn't really know what that definition meant either. I didn't know what the definition of being a strong individual meant as well. And through my wife, like, I learned I had a lot of growing to do. I wasn't very good in a relationship for a long time. Like, she was all about family, and I don't even know what that's like. I didn't 4 years into recovery, I still didn't really want a whole lot to do with mine, honestly. That's why I was in Austin there in Georgia. She made it clear I needed to work on that, and I ended up going to trauma therapy, and this is why I'm gonna make this comment, and this is just my own personal opinion, and I know I'm can be wrong, and everyone's entitled to their own. This is just Chris Ellis's opinion. And why I said, like, drugs and alcohol, I've been learning to lie, con my way, manipulate. How the fuck am I going to be able to go right off the street into a treatment center and sit down with a therapist and actually know what I need to talk about? How does that make it? Doesn't make sense to me. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take you down a bunch of rabbit holes that really don't have shit to do with what's going on. But too many people are afraid in this industry to just own that. Right? I'll own it right now. 4 years, 5 years into recovery, then I knew what honesty meant. And I really knew how to express, like, this is actually how I could go around talking about how I was sexually abused all day. That wasn't the issue for me. Talking about how it affected me as a man, how it affected me having sex with, people and all this stuff, that's what affected me. But that was the stuff I didn't want to talk about. 4 or 5 years sober, like, I was okay talking about that, and I was ready to get honest, and I was ready to do some work, and man, that shit was hard. And I mean, the mind's powerful, right? It blocks things off, and it doesn't want you to remember certain things for a reason. And I mean, it sucked then at the time, but I started remembering things that, like, they were like, somehow I knew that those things had happened to me, but I tried my hardest to forget them. And they all came back and I worked through it. And I got to sit down with my parents. One of the most powerful moments is, like, during this time, I was a counselor at a treatment center with young men. I got to go back and work at the place that got me well. And this young guy came in there, basically the same story as me, same thing happened to him. And by then I was educated and trained enough where I'd been doing family sessions for a long time. And I got to help him get well. But I didn't get that, right? And I used to go home and it'd keep me up at night. I just helped this young man, but I couldn't even help myself. And I wanted that closure with my family. Fuck, I just wanted my parents to just be like, we messed up, dude, and we were neglectful. That's all I wanted. But I didn't know how to express that. And I finally had the courage after therapy to sit down and just talk about it, right? It was powerful. And now it's easy to sit there and want to blame parents. But then when you become a parent, you realize. I remember when my kid was born in the hospital, I was just like, how am I going to keep him safe for 18, for his life, right? Hardest part of my recovery journey was when he was born. It brought up everything that had happened to me as a kid. When I look at my kid, it's like I dare touch my child and watch what happens. Like, there's no level of violence I won't go to for him. And this voice in my head was like, but no one did that for you, And it was really easy to fall back into victimhood. 6 years of sobriety, I finally decided, like, I'd quit taking meds when I got sober this time. I didn't want to be sedated anymore. But I realized pretty quickly, like, I needed help. I didn't want to start back down this journey again. And so I went and got properly diagnosed, got honest. Turns out I had OCD with intrusive thoughts. Found out it's okay to take medication, and it changed my life, man. I found out that probably for a lot of my life I was misdiagnosed and just doped up. That's not the case now. And I'll say this about recovery before I finish up. Like, it is hard. I'll say that kind of with a caveat. Yeah, man, like, maybe 7 times I've really had some days where those thoughts have entered, But over 8 years, like, this shit's not that hard, right? Like, it's not like I'm going to a meeting every day. I try my best to live by principles that they talk about: honesty, integrity, brotherly, sisterly love, perseverance, all that stuff. Like, that's how I found God. I didn't know who God was. I just was told live by principles. It's really hard to live by principles when you're newly sober. I couldn't even be honest. I wanted to judge God. I wanted to judge the 12 steps. And as a wise man once say, like, I don't care about hearing an opinion you've never had, about an experience you've never had. And that was me, right? I used to tell you all this shit doesn't work, but I had never had an experience with it. But I had an experience 8 years ago. And anytime I'm struggling, I just go back to the basics, right? And I still do, like, for 8 years now, praying and meditating, calling my sponsors, sponsoring other guys, having a home group and a service commitment, right? And like, look at how good life's gotten. Why would I give that up? I was told a long time ago, this program's a program of substitution, not addition, meaning if it's making your life harder, you ain't doing it right. And we actually hold each other accountable. Like, the people I choose to be around, we're not just homeboys. Like, we're trying to get each other to grow and push each other. I'm part of accountability group, all that. Like, it's deep, man. Like, that's what friends are for. Like, friends shouldn't tell you everything's all right when they're not. But yeah, man, I'm like, and to kind of end it, like, it's all, I think it's a question to everybody who's struggled in life, whether it's mental health, drug addict, alcohol. Like, what could I change about, if there were certain things I could change? And honestly, man, I don't even think I would change what happened to me as a child, because it made me what I am today. And like, I never thought I'd say this, but I love who I am today. I don't have a problem doing the right thing. The line has been drawn in the sand for me, and I'm not crossing it. I mean, I'm good with that. I can look myself in the mirror, and I can sleep at night, which at the end of the day, that's really all I ever wanted, was just to be able to sleep and be happy. And I got that today. So that's pretty much everything.
If you saw me crying the whole time, but I literally have snot running down my face. Sorry to the viewers if you watch, but I mean, that was the craziest, most powerful story. I mean, it really moved me. I had lost my words for a second. I mean, it really was powerful. Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. Our stories are very different, but there was parts of your story that were very similar to mine. And as I'm sure some of the listeners too, I mean, just that pain, that deep emotional pain and wanting to just end it all like that. I know exactly what you were talking about there. 'Cause you've tried everything. You've tried everything and nothing's working. But yeah, wow, to see you come through it, like, hell yeah. And the work that you're doing now and, like, the boots on the ground of it all and working in the recovery center, helping men that need the help, like, that is the cool part to me.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Absolutely amazing. I have a few questions
Yeah.
about your story. So over, that year, what do you think was like, if you had to pick one thing that kept you sober? Because so many people relapse in that first year. What
Mhm.
was the one thing that you think kept you?
Willingness.
Yeah.
Like, if I could just sum it up, it really is the three indispensables, which was beat into my head for 90 days at this treatment center, right? It says it's imperative to have this spiritual experience to overcome alcoholism or drug addiction, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, I screwed up a lot my first year, but like, I always tried to practice open-mindedness, willingness, and honesty. And when I screwed up, I got honest about it. And when someone said to go do something, I was willing about it. And when someone said you're wrong, I was open-minded enough to at least sit with it for 24 hours and digest it.
I wanted to ask you just because I was curious. So I struggled with wanting to save everyone when I got in recovery, quickly realizing it is very, very hard. The stats are against most people as they come into recovery for relapse, or it's rare to have a long-term sobriety outcome. And so how do you deal with the people that go back out?
Really, I don't, I mean, I'll say it, like, in AA recovery, people judge the shit out of others, and that's a shame. I've relapsed so many times, I've picked up so many white chips, like, I was told a long time ago, their wins aren't up to me and their losses aren't up to me. But I feel you, man. Like, I can sit here and tell you that, but like, I do this for a living. Like, I'm director of a mental health company doing recovery coaching, and like, I'm probably the worst of it. Like, I get so caught up in these guys, and like, my fam like, you know, my wife doesn't get the attention she deserves. My child doesn't, because I want to save these guys so bad and I want them to have the experience. But that's selfish of me. Like, they need to have their experience, not Chris's experience. And I always have to remind myself. But it is hard, man, because like, this ain't a paycheck to me. And when I'm sponsoring a guy, it's I just want to help. And sometimes, man, it can really consume your life if you let it. And there's been times in my sobriety, it has consumed me. But when I see guys and gals relapse, man, it's sad. Right, I feel for them, man, because I know what that hurts like. I mean, it rocks me to my core, and I just want to wrap them up. I want to tell them they're good. Like, I got you. I've had to learn boundaries over the years. I've had to learn what's appropriate and what's not appropriate.
Yeah. 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 I like the idea of like we're the lighthouse, right? So we're not going to go in the water and drown. We're going to just stay steady and be the
Mhm.
lighthouse. I have one last question before
Yeah,
we do our lightning round, which closes out the show. Over the last 8 years, what has been your number one blessing of recovery?
I don't I don't think about what happened to me as a kid anymore. Just yeah, that went away. Doesn't keep me up at any night. He don't visit me in my dreams very often. I mean, that's what I'm after, you know, and that's what it gave me, and that's what this relationship with God's allowed me to have.
I know him. Awesome. Your story's so powerful. I'm just completely moved by the last hour that we spent together. So thank you so much for being vulnerable and honest and
Yeah, of
sharing
course.
that part of your life. Thank you. So the lightning round is just a fun get to know you. I think people get
Okay,
extremely invested in you after they hear your story. So it's just a fun get to know you. So the first question is you're given three options. You have to pick one. Would you shark dive, bungee jump, or skydive?
shark dive. I've
Okay.
tried.
Okay. All right. Like it. Number two, you're in a simulation. Every time you walk into a room, the same song plays. What's your song?
For some reason, like a Miley Cyrus song keeps popping in
Oh
my
my gosh,
head.
The Climb. Yes.
I
Like
need
a wrecking
needing it
ball.
through like a wrecking ball, because that would just drive me absolutely crazy, but if I was stuck in a simulation, I think that's probably what the purpose would be.
That's actually a brilliant answer. Number three, what's your favorite Disney movie?
Hercules,
Oh, that's a good one. I like that. Number four, what is something you're obsessed with?
deer hunting.
Okay. Is a lot of that in Texas?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Last question. Number five, what does freedom mean to you?
What does freedom mean to me? I think relationship with God goes both ways. I can hear him, I can feel him, all that.
Yeah, absolutely. I know exactly what you mean. Feel them inside.
Mhm.
Yeah, I can't thank you enough. I really, really appreciate you coming on and sharing your story. It's going to
Yeah,
change
thank you
some
for
lives.
having me.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you from the bottom of my heart. It really means a lot to me. Thank you.
Yeah, of course, thank you.
All right, have a good night.